In April 2017, all ordinary and special meetings of Council are to be audio-visually recorded and streamed live. A link is available on the Glamorgan Spring Bay Council website to the YouTube platform, where the public can view the meeting live and watch recordings of previous council meetings. In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and Regulation 33, these video-audio files will be retained by Council for at least 6 months and made available for viewing live, as well as online within 5 days of the scheduled meeting. The written minutes of a meeting, once confirmed, prevail over the video-audio recording of the meeting. I welcome councillors, staff and members of the public, and I declare the meeting open at 6:31. The Glamorgan Spring Bay Council acknowledges the traditional owners of our region and recognises their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. This evening we have all councillors present apart from Councillor Simons, and in attendance we have Daniel Smee, our Acting General Manager. Welcome Daniel, and Ms Turvey, Council's Executive Officer. I request elected members to indicate whether they have, 1, any interest, personally or via a close associated, as defined in section 49 of the Local Government Act 1993, or 2, any conflict as described in Council's Code of Conduct for councillors in any item included in the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah. 2.1, independent reports on Tribunna Wharf Marina, PPRWS and Marina Views Tribunna. Councillor Churchill.
Yes, my motion is that Council determines to engage an independent and suitably qualified consultant/firm within 21 days to review the information available and prepare a report for Council that details relevant probity and potential risk implications related to the proposed extensions to the Tribunna Wharf Marina, to Prosser Plains Raw Water Project, including Hops Lagoon and the expression of interest, and Marina Views Tribunna. The General Manager is directed to give the consultants full and unfettered access to all information, documentation and records of any kind held by Council in respect to these proposals or projects. The selection committee for the consultant will comprise Mayor Wisby, Deputy Mayor Woods and Councillor Churchill. Thank you.
Do I have somebody to second that motion? Councillor Brenny. Open for discussion.
Gosh.
Through the Mayor. The information that has been asked for hasn't been forthcoming, and as a new councillor I have no real understanding of the projects. All that I've heard are rumours that are going around the town, and you know, I think it's really important if we can get this information.
Further comment, Councillor Brenny?
I understand in the workshop notes of the 8th of January there was a request to the General Manager to provide, and I'm using the words of the document, a comprehensive report on the proposal and costings to date. And it was marked urgent. Now, in the subsequent workshop that the General Manager attended, he provided I'm sure it was a confidential report, but the proposal and costings to date, with regard to our request for a comprehensive report, constituted less than 2 lines. This is a major project, a multi-million-dollar project. It deserves for us to be given information when we ask for comprehensive information, something better than less than 2 lines. Thank you.
Any further comment?
No, I'd just like to reiterate those comments that have been made. Sorry.
Sorry, if I could, before you excuse me, you wrapping up now? Because you moved the motion, so if you're going to wrap up, that means I can't speak.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so
No, that's okay. Yeah, Deputy Mayor Woods.
is it possible?
First.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so look, I understand what's being said here with regards to these motions, but I do have an issue with the cost. It's not budgeted. We haven't got it. You know, like it's just not something that we can pluck out of thin air. The amount that it will potentially cost the ratepayers. Is it possible for this to be deferred until budget talks? In the regard that we can actually budget the costings for these reports, because I don't know where the money's going to come from within council to actually pay for these reports. So that's just my question, my thoughts.
On that matter, I appreciate what you're saying, completely in respect to cost. Like as you're aware, we can amend any budget that we wish at any time, if council so chooses. Personally, I see this matter as being important important now, and that's why I'll personally support this motion today. Oh, Councillor Arnold.
Thank you. I will speak against this motion. By definition, probity is the quality of having strong moral principles, honesty and decency. By seeking a consultant's report on these projects, we're calling into question the principles, honesty and decency of not only our own staff, but councils that have gone before us. Many professional people who over years have dealt with the various projects named. Tasmanian Planning Commission, Crown Land Services, TasWater, the Federal Department of Environment, Treasury, DPIPWE, Department of State Growth, various consultant engineering firms, just to name a few. Perhaps I should mention the odd government minister or two who have supported us over many years as well. One even defined us as a can-do council. I've no problem with seeking a comprehensive report, but I question whether we need to go to a consultant's report that, as the Deputy Mayor has rightfully identified, could end up costing council a significant amount of money. We could direct the General Manager through a motion of council to provide the comprehensive report rather than a request through a workshop. The motion has requested potential risk implications to be investigated. By questioning the integrity of the many people that have had some involvement in these projects, I believe we are placing at serious risk the good relationship we have enjoyed with the state and federal governments. This is unacceptable and a waste of council's resources, both human and financial, and I will not support it.
Councillor Churchill?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, hold on a moment. Sorry, Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, the Mayor, Wisby,
Councillor
I'd just
Simons.
like to say I'm really concerned about the cost of what these reports might come to. I would really like to see what type of money we would have to budget to get reports done on these three major projects that are well advanced. I'd like to see some sort of scope and brief of what we would be looking at to receive from the consultants. I'd like to see all that before we move a motion that is quite open-ended and doesn't cover any of those issues for me. I understand councillors most likely do have questions about the three projects that are in this motion. If there's specific questions, I'm sure that council staff could most likely answer them if they're listed in an appropriate form. I'm just not sure what we'll achieve with going to consultants with this type of brief. I don't know what the outcome could possibly be other than a fairly large bill at the end of it. So that's my concerns, Mayor Wisby.
Churchill.
My view here on a couple of things is that we are dealing here with multi-million-dollar projects. Any consulting costs to clarify where those monies are being spent and the extent of money that we may have been committed to, I believe, are out of all proportion with the risk the financial risk that we potentially have. And I would at least put forward that I'd like you to support the motion that I've put, because I think it is going to be very, very important issues that we're dealing with here in the future of this council.
Okay, so I'll put the motion. All those for? Councillor Pike, Browning, Churchill, Breeny and Wisby against. Councillor Simons, Arnold and Deputy Mayor Woods. Carried. Item 2.2, independent report on the Solace development. Councillor Breeny.
Move that Council determines to engage an independent and suitably qualified consultants/firm within 21 days to review the information available and prepare a report for Council that details relevant probity and potential risk implications related to the Solace development. The General Manager is directed to give the consultants/firm full and unfettered access to all information, documentation and records of any kind held by Council in respect to this development. The selection committee for the consultant will comprise Mayor Wisby, Deputy Mayor Woods and Councillor Breeny.
Somebody second that motion? Councillor Browning. Open for discussion. Deputy Mayor Woods.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I'm at concern, and I take on board what Mayor Wisby has said with regards to being able to move money around the budget. However, if we do that, somebody's going to miss out somewhere along the line in one of the communities. And again, I ask if this could be a possibility of. I understand this, I understand what is being requested here, and I understand the frustrations of councillors. However, given that we've got, what is it now, 3 or 4 months before budget talks, I'm sure we could try and get some information at least from the General Manager and staff here, and then look at what we get, and then possibly factor that into, if it's needed, into the budget talks. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Churchill.
Yes, I'd just like to make the point that that 4 of us, Councillor Browning, Councillor Breeny, Mayor Wisby and myself, spent time looking through documentation relating to Solace on, I think that was the date, was it? The 8th of January this year. And there were apparently documents there that were missing, and documents that should have been available to us and upon request were not delivered and have not been delivered. With the need for this material to be found, we need assistance, and we need, in my view, appropriate consultants to make that information available to us so that we can carry out our duties as councillors.
Any further comment?
Mayor Wisby, just through you again. Once again, I have concerns about the cost implications. I would like to, before we agree to anything, to see perhaps what type of costs we would be up for, to get an understanding of what we're asking for again, what the scope of the report might be, just some due diligence before we go ahead and make a decision which hasn't, as far as I know, been discussed through myself. I've seen it across the table and heard what David's had to say, our General Manager, but as a group we haven't, I don't believe we've properly workshopped our way through it as to what might be a good way and an economical way for the municipality to get us the answers that we might require. I don't believe we've asked the right questions or put them into the right forum to perhaps get the answers we need from council staff.
Councillor Simons, just clarification on that. So putting it in writing in a workshop's not good enough?
Well, I don't think we had specifics. I think we could perhaps put a request again with specifics and make the point of what type of report we require, some of the answers that some of the councillors might require specifically.
Okay. Councillor Arnold?
Again, I'll speak against this motion. I reiterate my comments in relation to probity from the previous motion. There is an opportunity for council to enforce the provision of a comprehensive report by a robust motion of council without expending significant funds on a consultant. It is an unacceptable waste of council's financial resources, and I cannot support the motion.
I'm just seeking clarification, Mayor Wisby. Both of the motions, 2.1 and 2.2, is stating that we engage an independent suitable qualified consultant firm within 21 days. Is that the same firm within those 21 days to do both projects, or is it two separate firms?
Councillor Pike, that would be, it says in there that this one is Mayor Wisby, Deputy Mayor Woods and Councillor Breeny, so it would depend on you know, exactly what the report would be, whether or not it's, you know, a planner or an engineer or a, what, you know, exactly what the report is to be made up of will depend on who is engaged.
Okay, yes. Thank you. Sorry,
Yes.
Mayor Wisby. What I was inquiring was, so we're looking at perhaps two individual payments.
Perhaps not.
Thank you. I
Yes.
didn't. Oh, that's what I wasn't clear about. You see, because we would be agreeing to that, yes or no. So thank you
Yep.
for the clarification.
Thank you. Any further comment?
Sorry,
Sorry, Councillor.
can I go again? Then can we have that perhaps motion changed, because I don't know exactly how to vote, and I'm going to admit that here, because if you can't give me a definitive answer as to whether we're going to be paying out two lots or one lot, then I'm sorry, I don't know how to vote.
Yeah, so it would depend whether or not, you know, generally speaking, no single firm, like these matters are complex. You know, we could be talking planners, we could be talking lawyers, we could be talking engineers, we could be talking biodiversity, whatever those people are, you know, there's a big heap of different people depending on, you know, when you have a look at a file as to what expertise you actually need. And I don't actually know of one single firm in Tasmania that tick every single box that it has potential because of the complexity of the items, you know.
Right, okay.
Of course, I would think that council would certainly spend money very, very wisely and utilise, you know, in-house what we already pay for within our own staff, you know.
Right.
So it's, I can't answer, you know what I mean, I can't answer because I don't actually know the exactly what will come out of the first look.
Right, then, thank you.
Councillor Simons, you've already had your... You've got clarification or something?
I was just going to I was going to ask perhaps a question of which is a little bit to do with Councillor Pike's question. I noticed in motion 2.1 that we're actually looking at 3 separate projects. I would think that we would probably have 3 separate consultants and then a consultant for Solace. Would that be perhaps how it would have to be? One firm wouldn't be reviewing 3 separate projects, would they?
We're not talking about the 3 separate. We're working on 2.2 now, not 2.1.
Sorry, yes, well we are, but it did cross my mind that 2.1 has got 3 separate individual projects involved in it, and 2.2 is 1 separate individual project.
So what's your point?
The point is that we may need quite a few consultants to deal with these motions, both motions.
I don't know if we need a lot of consultants. As I said, it depends on what comes through on the when people look at the report. How long's a piece of string? I mean, that's the complexity of these matters, and and quite frankly, that's why I'm interested in the in getting a report that as somebody who needs to put up their hand and vote on these things, and we're we're put in these positions to represent community and look after the communities, and and quite frankly, I've got no problem with getting a report, and whoever needs with the expertise needed to write that report to make me confident. Councillor Churchill, have you had your say yet? No? Sorry, I've lost track in who's had a say.
I apologise.
Is that a brief one, is it?
It's a very brief one. I was just going to say that I think it will be a case of the amount of work required rather than the number of consultants that will govern the actual cost of what is involved. I think that's the simplest way, really, to look at it, to clarify your thinking. Thank you.
Yeah, and just before I go to you, Councillor Brini, I also, as you said, we had a look through the Solace folder, files, and they were quite complex, and hopefully somebody who understands that better than us might be able to get through it a bit quicker than what we did, because we spent hours on it, and yeah. Councillor Brini.
Okay. The current status of the Solace development and the extent of council's involvement definitely requires clarification. Now, one of the reasons why it's not wise to consider leaving these things in abeyance for time is because the Solace development of the specific area that I'm talking about in relation to some of the questions that were raised when we examined it was he's currently approved. Development is ready to go. And there is an urgency due to the fact that the project is actually underway. There's a DA that's been approved by delegation that council didn't see. That's probably quite okay, but I don't know about that, and that's one of the things that people need to be aware of as to how the process has taken place. And that's, there's a perception after examination of the Solace documents that several matters require careful, independent, expert scrutiny. There's no doubt about it. It may come back that there are issues that we haven't been told about that clarify everything, but we need that independence because the documents that we see are documents that relate to the current status of the development. Matters relating to compliance with original condition permits, the Glamorgan Spring Bay Interim Planning Scheme 2015, and require independent professional review to ensure that council is not exposed to financial risk, expansive planning appeals, which could occur, and security concerning its degree of financial involvement. Now, the terms of reference as set out by for the consultants, Councillor Pike, you were asking about, is there going to be one consultant or two or three? I'm hoping that with Mayor Wisby, Deputy Mayor Woods, Councillor myself, and with Councillor Churchill in relation to item 2.1 and 2.2, we will be considering very seriously the cost involved. We'll also be considering very seriously the extent and the terms of reference of this examination. And that will dictate how much it's going to cost. And we have to take into account the fact that this isn't a budgeted item, and we have to be sensible in the way that we, utilise council funding. We will have that to the forefront of our discussions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll put the vote. All those for. Councillor Churchill, Brini, Wisby, Browning and Pike. Against. Councillor Simons, Arnold and Deputy Mayor Woods. Carried.
If I may, Mayor, I just wanted on record to say that I am very concerned about the cost to the ratepayers on this.
Okay. 2.3 media policy replacement. Councillor Brini.
Thank you, Mayor. Attached to the agenda is the proposed replacement policy.
Just move the motion.
Could I move the motion that council endorses the replacement media policy effective immediately?
Someone second, Deputy Mayor Woods.
Thank you. I'll get the hang of it after a couple of months.
Any comment? No comment? Okay, you don't need to sum up, councillor?
I can just quickly, a two-liner if you like.
Sure.
The existing media policy is outdated and it is ambiguous. The replacement policy is robust and more clearly defines responsibilities for media interaction and the roles of all stakeholders. That includes all of council.
I'll put the motion. All those for? It's unanimous. Thank you. And 2.4, engagement of an industrial relations lawyer. Councillor Brenny. Please.
Thanks for the reminder. I move that council endorses the engagement of Craig Green, Senior Associate, Dobson, Mitchell and Allport, for the purpose of matters pertaining to the General Manager's contract of employment, performance and any other matters.
Motion, Councillor Churchill. Open for discussion. No discussion? Oh, Councillor Arnold.
The implication in this motion is that there is some question around the integrity of the previous performance review. I was part of the subcommittee that appointed the consultant to undertake the review. It may be considered inappropriate that the person used was already a human resources contractor for council, but in the opinion of the former subcommittee, this person was in the best position, well placed and eminently qualified to conduct a robust review of the General Manager's performance. The contractor provided former Mayor Kent, former Councillor Britt Steiner and me in my role as Deputy Mayor and a member of the subcommittee with a comprehensive brief of what the review should consist of and how the General Manager's new contract could be expanded to include some vital key performance indicators and build some baseline data that had been sadly lacking in previous reviews of not only this General Manager but those that had gone before him. Until this last review, General Managers have traditionally been reviewed against the position description, which gave little comfort in terms of performance against agreed and measured KPIs. The outcome from the last performance review was with little doubt one of the best performance reviews this council has ever undertaken in relation to a General Manager, let alone this General Manager. The consultant's review was extensive, report was extensive, and was presented to council in a confidential session on the 10th of April 2018, where it was agreed that the General Manager's performance was satisfactory, albeit with dissension from a now sitting councillor and two former councillors. Council approved at that time an increase in salary commensurate with the findings of the report. I see little reason to engage an industrial lawyer at this point and will not support the motion.
Sorry, just to clarify there, did you just say that the decision, did you just actually say who voted how?
No.
There? No. About a sitting at the dissension of a sitting councillor?
And two former councillors.
Right.
And it's
In confidential, confidential. Right.
That's fine.
Is it? Okay, any further comment?
Yeah, Wisby, once again, I'd just like to note I'm a little bit concerned about the costs once more, and I'm a little bit concerned about the open-endedness of it. I would be interested to know perhaps a little more detail, the advice we would be seeking. Is there a specific advice we're seeking on the General Manager's contract, or is it general advice?
Oh, could be anything.
Yes, which that probably concerns me a little bit, but
Does that?
yeah, so I'd just like to note that.
Right. Any further comments? Councillor Brenda, do you wish to conclude the discussion or not?
I don't. I could, but I don't think there's any need to, really.
Okay.
I understand the points of view, but this is simply a matter that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Okay, I move the motion. All those for? Councillor Churchill, Breeny, Wisby, Browning and Pike. Against? Councillor Simons, Arnold and Deputy Mayor Woods. Carried. 2.5 Strategic Plan. Councillor Arnold.
Wisby. Council undertakes a review of the current strategic plan, a subcommittee consisting of Mayor Wisby, Deputy Mayor Woods and Councillor Arnold to work with the General Manager to develop a scope of works for the review of the strategic plan and to enable the General Manager to seek expressions of interest from suitably qualified consultants. The subcommittee will review the expressions of interest and a report on potential consultants to be provided to Council no later than its April 2019 ordinary meeting, with the review of the strategic plan to take place in the forthcoming financial year after some budget funds have been expended or allocated. So it just needs to have a little bit with the review to happen in the forthcoming financial year after budget has been expended for it.
Are those words up there?
No. Suitably qualified
Sorry,
consultants.
if I may, Mayor Wisby, Ms Turvey, it's the subcommittee will review the expressions of interest for and a report on potential consultants is to be provided to Council no later than the April 2019 ordinary meeting, and a report on potential consultants. With the review of the strategic plan occurring in the 2019-2020 financial year. Subcommittee will review the expression of interest.
For and
No, it should, the word "for" should be removed. And a report on potential consultant with the review occurring in the 2019-2020 financial year. Mayor Wisby, it's simply to enable us to allocate some funds in the forthcoming budget for the strategic plan.
Can someone second that motion, please, Deputy Mayor Woods? My only frowning there was about in the event that April, we actually come up with somebody, and then potentially they could start, and we already have our budget discussions and we've, factored it in, but the bill's not going to come in for 4 or 5 or 6 months or something. It just means that potentially May, June, does that mean that they actually couldn't start work on the plan?
I see no reason why councillors couldn't start on the strategic plan between during May and June.
Yeah.
But I don't think that there would be, get our basic idea around the strategic plan. Don't have a problem with that. But I think if we're going to expend some funds, then they need to be allocated in the forthcoming budget.
Yeah, no, there's no argument with that.
We start working with the consultant in July.
But the consultant doesn't have to bill us until after July. You know what I mean? Because our strategic plan is basically out of date. You know what I mean?
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, that's my motion. That council, the review does not happen until the 2019-2020 financial year to allow us to put some funds.
I won't support that only for the purpose, I completely support it, but only for the purpose of our strategic plan's out of date and we've got to have an in-date strategic plan. So I think the fact that we can organise who and the amount, and the quicker we can get cracking on this, the better, in that the bill won't come in until the next financial year, so it's going to make no difference. But this is just holding up the process for 2 months.
No, excuse me, Madam Mayor, it's not holding up the process because, by your own admission, councillors have to own this strategic plan. So the councillors around this table need to workshop what the strategic plan is going to look like for probably a couple of months before we actually get a consultant in the room and go out to the community. So we're not holding up the process by doing this.
Yeah, so I see, as I said, I see that I don't know why we can't. If we've actually picked a consultant, I would have actually preferred that consultant to be able to work with us for those couple of months, you know, because we need to get cracking on this. And none of us are experts in strategic plan writing, and I think that's why we'd have that person around that table working with us as a council for those couple of months. That's not my only concern. So completely supportive other than that period. Councillor Churchwood, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to make that point that as a new councillor, I feel very insecure in trying to progress this without suitable advice, and I think the consultant that we're inevitably going to use should be available to us, even though the money might not be budgeted until after June. I mean, it seems to me to be common sense that the process would be started before then, and perhaps we can even have a written agreement with the consultant, whomever that may be, that that our billing will not be done until after the 30th of June. I would have thought that was a logical enough procedure as would be done in, I would imagine, any other business situation.
Any further comment?
Does the motion actually stop that happening? Does that motion actually stop the consultant working with council during those 2 months?
As long as it's agreeable to the council. No, to the consultant. Yeah, that's not a problem.
I'm saying that the review of the strategic plan should not occur until the 2019-2020 financial year, which, as we all know, starts on the 1st of July. But there is nothing in that motion that suggests that the consultant couldn't work with council during May and June if they're prepared not to bill us until July.
Is that not the review though? Isn't that what the word review, just hold on a sec, isn't that what the word review, I think it's... Yeah. Isn't a review to do the work?
Maybe review was implement.
The strategic plan has to go out to the community. The community have to be able to review it. So when that happens, why can't that happen in the 2019-2020 financial year?
Well, of course it can, but what I'm saying is this here is saying review. Like, to me, that's like we can't touch it until the 1st of July. That's how I'm reading that.
Yes.
I don't know. Councillor Pike,
Yes, I
how
agree.
are you reading it?
I'm reading it that way because, everything else I agree with. The subcommittee will review the expression of interest, and a report on the potential consultants is to be provided to council no later than its April ordinary meeting. With the review of the strategic plan occurring after the 1st of July. That's what it reads.
Acting General Manager me, would you be able to give us your thoughts on that wording?
My thoughts are you're largely dealing with semantics here.
Yeah.
I think the motion as it stands enables you to commence the process, and the motion includes development of a scope of works, which would include some timelines, I would have thought. So I think that's where the detail of the timeline would come into play, and I think that's where the detail of the billing arrangements for the consultant would also be determined. So I think this motion as it currently stands is sufficiently open-ended for it to be taken either way.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Councillor Arnold, your intent is that the consultant could be engaged as long as they don't bill prior to the 1st of July. That's your intent?
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
As long as we have some funds in the budget to pay them. That's all I'm asking for.
Well, under the Act we must, because we must have a strategic plan.
I understand that
so.
fully. understand that fully.
Okay, so no further comment. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimous. Thank you. That's the end of the meeting. So we'll be going into confidential items now, which is a closed session, and I thank everyone for attending this evening. So I declare the meeting closed to the public in order to rescind a motion relating to the General Manager's annual leave.